welcome to Bet the Edge, Blitzing the Board, powered by PointsBet. I am your host, Sarah Perlman, and we are back hunting for value in Week 3 with actionable betting insights and analysis. You can catch our show live on YouTube Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern or on Peacock up until kickoff on Sunday. And I am joined by the two sharpest football and betting minds in the industry. Warren Sharp, founder of Sharp Football Analysis, and Drew Dinsick, professional handicapper and lead betting analyst with NBC Sports Edge. Guys, it's Week 3. Warren, Drew, how are you feeling?
Feeling great. Looking forward to running through this card with you guys. I think there's some good value on the board this week. What do you think, Drew?
Absolutely agree with you. Very fired up, particularly for sort of the standalone primetime games that we get on Sunday and Monday. Lot of things are going to sort themselves out this week. We'll leave it at that.
We're going to get into all of that because coming up, we dissect the line movement that swung back to Tom Brady in Los Angeles, why Warren Sharp believes Josh Allen could be in store for big plays against the Washington defense, and whether Jimmy Garoppolo's conservative approach will hold back the 49ers against the Packers. Also, Jay Croucher from PointsBet will join us live to share the best spot to fade the public this weekend. But to kick it off, we begin with what we're watching heading into Sunday for Week 3. And one of the biggest storylines now are some 2-0 teams because a number of teams have gotten off to some hot starts this season. Denver and Las Vegas, surprisingly, the only unbeaten teams in the AFC, while the NFC has more teams you'd expect. Tampa Bay, Los Angeles, San Francisco, among a few others. So, Drew, I will start with you here. Out of those 2-0 teams, who do you find, or which do you find, the market is overreacting to the most this weekend?
Well, just considering how their Week 3 matchups have been kind of opened and, how this market is being shaped, I think it's fair to take a very critical look at whether San Francisco and the LA Rams will be among the unbeaten come Week 3. That it's interesting because you want to qualify some of these teams as either pretenders or contenders, and every win in the NFL is super important. Obviously, relatively short schedule, only 17 games to work with here. So if you're 2-0, you're obviously in great position in terms of controlling your own destiny and getting to the playoffs. However, if you look at the NFC West specifically, all 4 of these teams in the NFC West are in my top 10 in terms of a power rating. And that is going to be fascinating as they start to play each other. And, there's attrition here between these different teams. They're all going to be in the mix, I would say, for the playoffs. But ultimately, I don't think any of these teams is going to be primed to steal the 1 seed away from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I see as true contenders. And so I think if I had to qualify them, I think both the Niners and the Rams were going to come out of this weekend thinking they may be pretenders.
We'll get into that in just a little bit. Specifically with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing the Rams, that line has switched over the last few days where the Rams opened at favorites, and now we're looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now favorites in that game. Surprisingly enough, when I mentioned the AFC and the teams that aren't 2-0, well, the Chiefs are one, Cleveland Browns, of course, the other. So let's talk a little bit about some of the teams with the Cleveland Browns, because this weekend, Matt Nagy did announce that Justin Fields will start in Cleveland this week against the Cleveland Browns. So I go to you here, Warren. What are your expectations for Justin Fields and this offense now as 7-point underdogs on Sunday on the road?
Well, I'm a little bit leery that they didn't want to make this move proactively, and they're kind of making it reactively because they're being forced to. The reality is Andy Dalton's depth of target this year is 4.6 yards. Justin Fields is over 10 yards per attempt when he's been in the game. So if they don't dial the game plan down completely, if they don't neuter this offense with Justin Fields in there, we're going to see a deeper passing attack a little bit with this offense. And secondly, we're going to see a quarterback who's actually going to move and scramble. They can design some runs for him, and he's going to be able to turn negative plays from a passing perspective into positive plays. If there aren't throws to be made, he can tuck the ball and gain some yards on the ground. So I'm actually really interested to see how he looks against this Cleveland Browns defense. It's not going to be an easy defense to go up against, but I do think that moving to Justin Fields was the right thing to do. I wish that they had came to that realization on their own instead of being forced to do so due to Dalton's injury.
Right now, probably a quicker game plan designed for Justin Fields kind of overnight. We're looking at the Offensive Rookie of the Year graphic right now. Mac Jones, the favorite at plus 225, followed by Trevor Lawrence at 5-1. Justin Fields at plus 600. Warren, I do want your opinion here. Is it time, if you have not already, to buy into Justin Fields, Offensive Rookie of the Year, or is this now an award you sit and wait to see how he performs against this Cleveland Browns defense?
This is a tough call. I think he should keep the job. I don't think they should go back to Andy Dalton, but they have said that they're going to go back to Andy Dalton when Dalton is healthy. Whether you believe Matt Nagy or not, that's to be determined. I personally think that with his job on the line, because I think it absolutely is this season, if Justin Fields looks good, then he's going to stick with Justin Fields. And if Justin Fields looks good, then I think he's got a great shot at this award. The issue with Mac Jones, who obviously is probably going to win more games than any of the other players that are listed on here. The issue with Mac Jones is he's really being thrust into, and I'm going to talk about this momentarily, a game manager situation in New England where they're run heavy and they're throwing the ball really short. And so he's not going to have many turnovers. He's not going to be asked to do much in many games. We'll see maybe against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next week, he'll be forced to do a lot more because their offense will have more success against his defense. But absolutely, I think Justin Fields has a high upside to perform and to throw the ball down the field more than Mac Jones and to create more explosive plays and look a lot better to the voters if he's successful.
Well, Justin Fields in his first start in the NFL, 7-point underdogs on the road in Cleveland, but home favorites off to a little bit of a cold start. There was an expectation, Drew, that with fans back at the stadiums and at 100% capacity, we would see home field advantages yet again. I look at the numbers right now, home favorites, just 5-13 against the number this season. I know you have your eye on a bunch of home or road dogs rather this week. What has your process been like kind of going into the season, thinking that home favorites and home field advantage was back, but not seeing that yet?
What's home field advantage? I remember hearing about that years ago, but it's been a while since I've really seen
it's a long lost
in an
memory.
NFL game. This is now year 3. Where we really have not gotten much of an indication that home field advantage ought to be accounted for in terms of a point spread. Most of the discussion you hear about, what is home field advantage worth? People throw out points. First and foremost, I'd like to kind of change pivot the discussion a little bit. It's win probability, right? And currently I am applying about a 2% bump in terms of win probability for the fact that you have a home crowd. That is about as low as I have ever accounted for in the NFL. And if by the end of the season I'm at 0, I will not be surprised. There are a lot of factors that go into home field advantage, but surely the way the game is currently being reffed is very, very, very location neutral. And also teams have gotten much, much better at preparing their athletes for the difficult road trips and putting them in less disadvantaged situations when they are traveling in particular. So you're getting better performances in general out of these road teams. The data bears this out. This is not speculative narrative at all. And I think as long as we continue to see these referee trends and as long as organizations continue to kind of make the correct choices about when to travel, where to stay, and how to keep your players, best prepared to perform on Sunday when you're on the road, you're going to continue to see value with the road dogs. Honestly, it used to be you would kind of steer away from teaser legs with road favorites that were in the advantaged, price window. Well, those teaser legs have been absolutely fire now for like 3 seasons. Like if road favorites, road dogs, you are getting north of about 72% getting those home if you are either in the +1.5 to +2.5 window, or if you're in the -8.5 to -7.5 window. So really I'm not being shy at all putting some of the road teaser legs into my card on the weekend. And realistically, like you mentioned, I have 5 sides. I've played 5 sides this week. 4 of them are road teams, and I've played money line on 2 of them. So I would expect this trend to continue at least through week 3. When we get into the colder months this season, and you start to get some weirdness where a warm weather team or a dome team is going outdoors and playing in the freezing cold, maybe it starts to creep back in a little bit more than 2%. But for now, at least, you have to be very, very careful about assuming that that's going to be a differentiating factor.
We'll get into the road teams that you like. Also, my new middle name, Teaser, Perlman, I'll go by that. That's how much I love teasers this season. But let's get into some road teams and some matchups because it's time for our game previews. And Warren and I will start with your game of the week. The New Orleans Saints playing the New England Patriots. Patriots, of course, hosting. This line opened New England favored by 3, the total at 43.5. The line stays the same. New England's back to favored by 3. We have seen the total tick down now to 42. This is your game of the week. Take it away, Warren.
So when we look at the New Orleans Saints and we talk about Jameis Winston, I was down on this team before the season started, and I bet they're under in their win total. And we talked about it on our pre-show couple weeks back, and I think Drew was in agreement, and you too, Sarah. Now we're sitting here after last week's game, and we're feeling a little bit better about ourselves. But I think the market and the public saw what Jameis did against the Jacksonville Jaguars defense after he was named starter over Taysom Hill, and then they saw what he did week 1 against the Green Bay Packers defense. And you know what? The Jaguars defense and the Packers defense, pretty terrible so far this season. And week 2 was a crisp slap across the face when he faced a real NFL defense of the Carolina Panthers. And now he's going up against another real defense of the New England Patriots. Now, here's the interesting thing. One of the reasons why I was betting against the Saints to start the season was because I expected this team to turn more to a run-heavy situation, which would put them into far more second and longs, not bypassing third downs nearly as often. They have become, on early downs in the first 3 quarters of games, one of the top 3 most run-heavy teams in the NFL, and it's left them with massive yards to go on second and third down, some of the highest in the NFL, and it's caused them to be in these very difficult situations, and that's against the Packers defense, and then, of course, it was against the Panthers defense. On the other side of the football, I just mentioned at the top of the show, we've got Mac Jones, who's not being asked to do very much here. He has the 5th lowest ADOT in terms of target depth. He has the 4th lowest distance before the sticks that he's throwing the ball short of the sticks on average. So it's another game that's high run team that is throwing the ball more conservatively. And what I see here is 2 top 5 defenses squaring off against one another, 2 teams that are running the ball at extremely high rate, and 2 coaches that want to be careful with their quarterbacks. They don't want a lot of mistakes to be made out there. I think this clock's going to be ticking a lot. And that's why I took under 43 for this game earlier in the week. Obviously, the total has shifted. If you're staring at your odds screens right now, you'll find 42. You might be able to find a 21 in the first half still, but that is also getting hit as the secondary market, and now that's dropping down to 20.5. I would look to find the 21 in the first half, but I do think this game probably still is able to go under the 42.
I'm in agreement with you here, and with the market clearly as this total is ticked down, 2 top defenses. Drew, I like the total. I'm with Warren. How are you attacking this game?
Yeah, I wish I had that foresight as well. I played it to the New England side here. I laid the points. I laid 2.5, and honestly, this is trending back to 2.5, which means someone out there has an appetite to bet New Orleans this week, maybe looking for a bounce back spot after that truly gross performance against Carolina last week. But it's very tough to come up with a fair number on New Orleans because they've been on a traveling roadshow going on 3 weeks now. They haven't had the normal routines of getting their players the treatment that they need during the week. The coaches have been sidelined with COVID now and have disrupted their routine and preparation. So very, very difficult handicap here, but I generally agree with Warren's points. I will just add, I really hope that the Mac Jones narrative starts to shift because I don't mind that they're not asking much of him. They don't have wide receivers that can create separation. So why in the world would you want to attack down the field with this crew? Like, go with the running backs and tight ends, hit those guys. That is fine. You know, his expected completion percentage is one of the, it's like 70-ish%. Keep running that game plan out there. Get this win against New Orleans, and I think New England might make some noise in the AFC if they keep playing this way.
As somebody who also likes Mac Jones for Rookie of the Year, let's stay with that game plan. Okay, Drew, when asked for your game of the week, the one that you've handicapped and you're looking forward to, you chose the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Los Angeles playing the Rams. Now, this line opened with Los Angeles favored by 1.5, the total 54. As we look right now, this flipped. We're looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers favored by 1, total now ticked up, 55.5. What say you about this matchup and where you advise people to attack it?
Yeah, again, very low. I'm giving very low credit here for the Rams' home field advantage. I think realistically, my power numbers would make this a 2.5-point game in favor of the Buccaneers. So the fact that they opened up as a small dog was music to my ears. Jumped on it right away on the money line. Seeing it move out to 1.5 and then come back to 1 means we got a little bit of market resistance here. So this looks like a fair number, at least in the eyes of the market makers. I still see an edge on Tampa at 1. Again, my fair is 2.5. I would probably play it up to that price point. But realistically, Tom Brady and the weapons that he has in the passing game are such a superlative advantage against a Los Angeles Rams defense that has had a lot of attrition, not just with the coordinating, not just with some of the other staff on that defensive coaching tree from last season, but with some of the depth that they had. And there are holes in this Rams defense. We've seen pretty poor offenses like Chicago and Indianapolis take advantage of those holes now 2 straight weeks. And if those units can do it, then Tampa Bay can absolutely do it as well. I think Tampa Bay gets a win here and continues their march towards the 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, I love Tom Brady in this spot. Through 5 touchdown passes last week. Early front runner. Tampa Bay getting a lot of love with this number, now flipping. More on that game in a second. Get an edge with our premium betting tools, which you can get a glimpse of throughout the show, that are packed with live odds, betting trends, predictions, player prop projections, our extensive edge finder, so much more. And if you use the promo code BLITZ10, you will get 10% off any annual subscription. We're breaking down the rest of the NFL slate when we come back.
NBC Sports Edge Plus. Home to everything fantasy, DFS, and betting. With premier tools and exclusive insights that are second to none. Get fantasy predictions, rankings, and betting trends. Plus news and analysis from our experts. Play with confidence today. Visit NBCSportsEdge.com/learn. Don't leave money on the table. No matter your sport, the Predictor app has got you covered. Tens of thousands in cash prizes up for grabs every week. And it's free to play. Download the NBC Sports Predictor app powered by PointsBet now.
Another beauty on Sunday Night Football. And don't touch that dial.
That's sensational.
What a play.
Holy smokes.
Welcome to AP Bio. Ready to begin?
You're a tiger.
Uniforms promote conformity. You're going to turn these kids into cults.
We're really getting somewhere now.
Yeah. We are officially in a tornado warning.
We're all dead. We're dead.
Do not live in fear.
Where's my son, Jack?
Are you Mr. Griffin?
I suppose I am.
Dad?
We welcome you back to Blitzing the Board. We now go between the lines, where Drew and Warren have identified a matchup they'll be looking to attack in week 3. And we'll start with you, Warren, as I look at the Washington football team in Buffalo playing the Bills. And we've seen some movement in this one. Opened at Bills -9.5, total 47.5. I look right now at the current line, the Bills favored by just 7.5 now. Totals come down to 45.5. Here's a fun fact. Washington has only beat Buffalo once since 1993. That's right. Before I was born. I said it. Warren, let's get to ways you've identified to attack. I got to smile. That's all I got to say. Warren, some ways you've identified to attack this matchup besides dating back to 93.
Yeah, you're fortunate in that you were born after 93. Kudos to you. Not all of us are so lucky. But with the Buffalo Bills, this is an interesting matchup for them because their passing attack, specifically Josh Allen, has not clicked nearly as much as it was when last season ended. And so the question is going to be, when does this thing start to get back on track? Obviously, their game week 1 against Pittsburgh really derailed them. They expected a lot of blitzing from the Steelers. That's what the Steelers did in week 14 of 2020. And those blitzes did not come in 2021. But Pittsburgh was still able to get pressure despite not sending blitzes. Washington is not like that. Washington is the 3rd most blitz-heavy team on the season. They are going to try to send pressure, and they want to play man coverage behind it. And it's really a boom or bust scenario for the Washington defense. If they get there, obviously this is going to cause problems for Josh Allen. Every quarterback has done worse when they're pressured. Josh Allen has specifically done worse when he has been blitzed this year compared to what he's done last year. But when Washington blitzes and does not get pressure, the floodgates open, and their defense has been massively exploited so far this season. And we're talking about a home game against Justin Herbert, great quarterback, bad offensive scheme right now, and a game against the New York Giants with Daniel Jones and Jason Garrett at the helm. I expect Brian Daboll, Josh Allen, all the weapons that they have to be able to get back on track. You don't really want to run the football too much against Washington. You want to attack their defense through the air. Obviously, the Buffalo Bills offense is set up perfectly to do that. It's going to be interesting to see. The main matchup I'm interested in, the third most blitz-heavy team of Washington. How well does this Bills O-line stand up to that pressure? And how well does Josh Allen deal behind that, avoid the pressure, get the ball out quickly to his playmakers in space in man coverage to make some bigger explosive gains against this Washington secondary?
And we've yet to see Josh Allen really have that explosive game from himself in the 2 weeks now, facing a very good defensive line in the Washington football team. It's going to be Heineke starting for the Washington football team this weekend. Drew, have you placed any bets? And if not, where are you looking to take advantage of this matchup?
Well, I fully agree with Warren's breakdown. I played the over here. I think the Buffalo Bills could get that by themselves if things are clicking for Josh Allen. And I do have fond memories of this matchup. The first ever Super Bowl I remember watching growing up in Washington, D.C. was Bills versus Washington. And much like that game, I would be perfectly happy with a 37-24 type of final score here as someone who has played into the over. So should be a really fun one. And I would love to see Josh Allen get on track this season.
So you are looking for the over in the Bills game right now, sitting at 45.5. We have the Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys, and we've also, per usual, seen some movement, not as much as others. This opened at Cowboys favored by 3.5 points, opened at the total with 51.5. Money came in on Dallas, now laying 4 points at home. Total is 52. What is so enticing to you, Drew, in this matchup specifically that helped you identify a betting edge?
Well, this is interesting, and I expected the market was going to move a little bit in the direction of Philadelphia back to 3, but we haven't really seen it. So there's some pretty interesting push-pull here going on with the side. I played Philadelphia +4, largely on the basis of I love the matchup of Jalen Hurts going up against what I make to be a relatively slow linebacking core for Dallas. Jalen Hurts last week, he was still somewhat effective on the ground, even though he was going up against one of the faster linebacking core, particularly Fred Warner, who is maybe linebacker number 2 across the entire NFL right now. And I would say that what we saw out of Jalen Hurts in the Atlanta Falcons game is more like what I would expect here against Dallas. Anytime Dallas is on the field offensively, their matchup of their offensive line, which is their strength against the strength of the Philadelphia defensive line, is going to be phenomenal to watch. I make that a draw. If Dallas comes in with a minus EV game plan where they think they can play keep away and then they're giving Zeke Elliott too many touches, then that plays into the hands of the Philadelphia Eagles here. Ultimately, I see this one being decided by a field goal either way, and I will happily be on the dog on the road at +4.
Talked about road dogs earlier in the show. Here's another one you like, the Philadelphia Eagles in Dallas with the 4 points. How about you, Drew? If you're looking, or Warren, to attack this matchup, what stands out?
What stands out to me is Jonathan Gannon, the defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. I know they've lost Brandon Graham. How well can he kind of cover up that loss? And how well will this defense perform? Because if you look at what this defense has done so far this season, the 49ers scored 41 points when they didn't play the Eagles, but they only scored 17 when they played the Eagles. The Atlanta Falcons scored, I think, 25 points when they didn't play the Eagles and only 6 points when they played the Eagles. I'm looking to see against a good, dynamic, diverse offensive attack from a skill position level that Dallas Cowboys have. And I've been pleasantly surprised and impressed by some of the play calling that Kellen Moore has brought to the table, especially early on in this game. How well do they match up against this Eagles defense? I'm really going to be interested to see that. And then you've got Micah Parsons rushing from the edge. They're using him more as a down lineman as opposed to a linebacker like they did week 1. He was getting some pressure, but against Storm Norton, a backup right tackle for the LA Chargers last week, he's now going to be going up against Lane Johnson, a premier, at least historically, right tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles. So that matchup really is going to help define whether or not Hurts has some time to throw the football down the field.
I like the road dog in this one, and actually the under. By the way, under's 2-0 so far in both of the Eagles games this season. When we talk to Jay Croucher, head trader at PointsBet, in just a bit, I'm going to have to ask him what kind of money is coming in on this game, moving the lines and ultimately who they're rooting for. Before that, though, we do not have time to break down every game of the week. And right now, we're going to go to the Blitz because these are quick, honest opinions that we can get through to make sure we're giving all of our takes. And we will start with the Indianapolis Colts playing Tennessee. Warren, your thoughts?
I can't see value in laying it with Tennessee. It was a miracle that they came from behind to beat Seattle last week. I could only look to the Colts in this one.
Yep, same dog or pass here for me. And the fact that you may have a Carson Wentz who could be limited with his mobility, which has been the strongest part of his game, that is an easy pass.
I'm sorry, 2 bad ankles, I'm out. Arizona at Jacksonville. Drew.
This one was a tough one to pass up on because realistically, this price it's been too much of an overreaction in favor of Arizona here and against Jacksonville. But the way that they're being coached, the way that they're letting Trevor Lawrence sling it right now, and the amount of time that the Jacksonville Jaguars defense has spent on the field to this point in the season are all things that scared me off of taking the points with the Jags.
I could only look towards Jacksonville, but if you're looking at this one, I mean, I think a Kyler Murray longest completion prop could be in the works here in terms of going over that prop. I just think it's going to be a difficult time. There's going to be a lot of aerial assault in this one, but I don't really trust Cliff Kingsbury on the road with this number.
It would be Jacksonville or nothing, so I'm taking nothing here. Cincinnati at Pittsburgh, Warren.
Look, I think this game bodes really well for a first half under. You've got a team with Joe Burrow who threw multiple interceptions, taking a lot of sacks. They're going to be looking to run the ball. Pittsburgh, we don't even know if it's going to be Ben Roethlisberger or his backup. I think we're going to get a lot of rushing attempts early in this game from both teams and short passes against decent defenses. I think the under is to play.
Yeah, and I would completely agree with that. However, the best of the number has sailed. You needed to get involved when it was 47. It is now down to 43, so this will be a pass for me.
All right, here we go. Los Angeles Chargers and Kansas City playing the Chiefs, Drew.
Going to be a low-key one of the better games of the week that's not being talked about a lot. We're going to learn a lot about exactly how good Justin Herbert is here going up against the Chiefs defense that has not been good through 2 weeks so far this season. Chance that we see some pretty awesome fireworks in this one. However, it is noteworthy that the Chargers are the one team that has had the right scheme to keep a lid on Pat Mahomes. This is another one where I would go dog or nothing, and the fact that it is 6.5 and not 7 kept me away from backing the Chargers.
Yeah, I think that this offense of the Chargers needs to improve. They need to let Justin Herbert fling the ball down the field. So far, shorter depth of target than he had last year, throwing it into tighter windows. The Chiefs, you're going to have to score points against these guys. Don't get conservative offensively. Unleash Justin Herbert. Let the world see this boy sling the football on early downs, down the football field. And other than that, Chargers, 1-9 or 12, Drew, in their last 13 games in the NFL. I can't be laying the points with the Chiefs here. I could only back the Chargers even at this number.
Kansas City Chiefs haven't covered in 4 straight. It's a stay away for me. Excited to watch. Don't forget to check out our daily podcast, Bet the Edge, powered by PointsBet, Monday to Friday, to arm you with the most actionable information you need to wager with confidence. Drew and I, along with our NBC Sports Edge team of experts, provide listeners with unique analysis, trends, projections, and picks from the futures markets to overs, unders, point spreads. Be sure to check out our Edge betting tools. Tune in to give yourself an extra edge with your wagers. Head trader at PointsBet, Jay Croucher, going to give us some insight on Week 3 lines when we come back.
Another beauty on Sunday Night Football. And don't touch that dial.
That's sensational.
What a play.
Holy smokes.
Hi, welcome in. I am Vaughn Dalzell here at NBC Sports Edge, bringing you my favorite NFL player prop for Week 3's action. We're going to go into the Chargers and Chiefs showdown for Justin Herbert, over 286.5 passing yards playable, up to the 300 passing yard number. He's already done this twice against the Chiefs as a rookie quarterback. In 17 career games, he's hit this number 11 times already. The Chiefs, through 2 weeks, allow the third most passing yards per attempt at 10.4. Not to mention they've been susceptible to the big play as of late. They've allowed 8 plays of 20 or more yards through the air, and then 4 plays, which is the most, of 40 or more yards through the air. Herbert has had success with 278 or more yards in 5 of 6 games against AFC West opponents. He's going to attempt to go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes for a third time in his career. I like the over passing yards. I am Vaughn Dalzell. Check out the website, NBCSportsEdge.com. Player prop projections, game projections, and more. Enjoy the games, and best of luck.
Welcome to AP Bio. Ready to begin?
You're a tiger.
Uniforms promote conformity. You're going to turn these kids into cults.
We're really getting somewhere now.
Yeah. We are officially in a tornado warning.
We're all dead. We're dead.
Do not live in fear.
Where's my son, Jack?
Are you Mr. Griffin?
I suppose I am.
Dad?
It's now time to welcome in Jay Archer, the ghost head trader at PointsBet. And Jay, as always, we appreciate you taking the time. And out of all the games we need to get to, I'm going to start with this one. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing Los Angeles on the road, because earlier in the week, I was actually speaking with Drew. I said, this line I think is going to flip. And it did. We're looking now at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers favored on the road. I'm curious to hear what kind of money ultimately flipped this. Is it a lot of public action backing Tom Brady? Have you seen sharp action involved in this game? And ultimately, come Sunday, what are you guys rooting for in this matchup?
So Sarah, sharps and the public are aligned here in loving Tampa Bay, and that's what flipped the line from Rams -1 to Bucks -1. So we're going to be in the spot where we're cheering against Tom Brady, which is never the best spot to be in, but we'll be hoping that the Rams can do it. I think the Rams are one of the most interesting teams in the league. I know Drew is very skeptical on them, and I think what makes them interesting is that their defense was so incredible last year, and that was always going to regress just with the way that defenses naturally regress year to year, and then also the personnel they lost, particularly in the secondary. And it was always going to be a question of whether that improvement from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford was going to be enough to bridge that gap. I think this is the week where we'll really see whether that defense has really fallen off, because they haven't been tested so much by a couple of limited offenses in Chicago and then last week in Indianapolis. So Tampa Bay have got just about the best offense in football at the moment. So it'll be very interesting to see how this Rams defense holds up.
Jay, you're too kind calling those offenses limited that they were going up against. We're talking Carson Wentz and Andy Dalton, both of which I think only punted their offenses a collective 3 times in like 16 drives against this Rams defense, both of which were able to drive routinely from their side of the football field into the Rams territory. They just couldn't score points late because, of course, Andy Dalton and Carson Wentz. Moving on to another game that has just catastrophic teams so far this season. 2 0-2 teams, the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Giants right now. We saw some signs of life from the Atlanta Falcons against Tampa Bay. They were actually keeping that game relatively close early on, up through the third quarter, in fact. The New York Giants, of course, almost pulled off that win against the Washington football team on Thursday night. What do you guys need in this game, and what do you estimate both of these teams to be? Is there any value to be had for the bettors in this number?
So people are staying away for the most part, which might be advised in such a blockbuster matchup for now between the Falcons and the Giants. I think that, going back to what, Drew was talking about with home field advantage, in the old days, this would have been 3-point line. These are even teams and it's home field. Now we treat home field advantage as worth 1.5 points around that range, pushing up to 2 at the bigger end of the spectrum. And so we think that the Giants are better than the Falcons, though that's not the biggest compliment in the world. But I think what is most interesting here is that this Giants defense was respectable last year, and it's been horrific this year. This Atlanta offense was respectable last year and it's been horrific this year. So which one of those units will regress to expectations will probably decide this game, but it feels like a close and ugly game.
Yeah, no, that's under 48.5 here. So I hope you're right about that, Jay. Could you give us a little look behind the counter about how you deal with weeks like this, where we are heading in with some true quarterback uncertainty still? Like, there are a number of question marks in terms of who will be the starting quarterbacks, beyond just the fact that we are going to have about 4 or 5 new guys that we have yet to see make NFL starts. What is your decision making when you have games like this come across the board?
So it is difficult. It's most difficult within play, and particularly last weekend, where it looked like at times that Baker Mayfield was done, Derek Carr was done. They both came back, whereas Tyrod Tua. They both didn't come back, and Dalton didn't come back either. With this week, we're really just looking at the probability, we're taking a calculated guess as to who will be playing, and then we're kind of basing the line off of that. In some situations, there isn't that much of a difference where, Andy Dalton versus Justin Fields, as bad as Fields looked, I wouldn't judge him too harshly on coming into the middle of a game with a full week's preparation. He should be better, although it is a bit of it's a tough initiation going up against Myles Garrett. But I think that, Fields will be better. So we don't see too much difference between Fields and Dalton. It is in other games, particularly with a team like Cleveland, where the drop-off from Baker Mayfield, if he's severely limited, will be immense. But really, it's a calculated guesswork game that we just have to react as more information comes out.
Okay, we've got the Baltimore Ravens off of this hugely emotional win. I'm going to get to, in a second, one of your favorite picks of the week this week. But you gave them to us last week. You said bet on the Ravens, and they obviously won the game outright. But that was an emotional win for them. And now they go up to Detroit, who is on a short week themselves after leading at the half, and then the rain fell, and Jared Goff's small, tiny hands caused him to literally let the game slip through them in the second half. Where do you see this game? I know the Baltimore Ravens, I believe our researchers said that they are 14-1 the last 15 games when they're favored like this on the road. What do you think about this team and this game in particular? Do you guys need the Lions to cover this spread?
So we will need the Lions to cover the spread. I think every week going forward until proven otherwise, we're going to need the Lions and the Jags to be covering spreads because no one wants any piece of those teams, or the Jets as well. They're probably the third piece in that holy trinity. But yeah, I think that the Ravens, they're another interesting team because, we thought that they were undervalued going into the Kansas City game. I think that afterwards, now they might be a little bit overvalued, just in the sense that, they have some really crippling injuries, particularly to Ronnie Stanley and Marcus Peters. The running back situation, we don't concern ourselves as much with pricing. It's more losing those really valuable pieces on the offensive line and at cornerback. So the Ravens, I think that the matchup against the Chiefs, another team who might be a little bit overvalued based on their reputation. The Chiefs, they cannot stop the run, and they've been able to stop the run for years. And so Baltimore were able to do whatever they wanted on the ground. So I think that offense looked especially good against Kansas City and may not look as good on the ground against Detroit because Kansas City's rushing defense is that bad. So there's a lot of factors at play. I think that, with Lamar Jackson having an injury concern as well, that plays into it too. I think Detroit, they showed in week one that they will be able to do work in garbage time, that Jared Goff can do that. Maybe that was his ultimate destiny, to be the garbage time backdoor cover quarterback for the generation. So I think that, people may be nervous if they're taking Baltimore with giving away the points because Detroit could come back late.
Yeah, especially when it's in Motown, that makes that makes all the sense in the world. No rain with the small hands. The big narrative last week was overreact, blah, blah, blah. I didn't really see much of it. And then again, the market still wants to dump on some of these terrible teams and adjust away from what the preseason priors were. Are you seeing at long last or just continued value on the underdogs across the board?
So I think it's going to balance out a little bit now. To us, the two most interesting teams going into last week were Arizona and Philadelphia because of how incredible they looked in week one. And I think that, we come out of week two probably valuing both of those teams a little bit less, even though Arizona won. If you're a Super Bowl contender type team, you probably shouldn't be relying on Minnesota to miss 37-yard field goals in your house to win matches. And then Philadelphia, in probably the strangest game of the week, where they seemed in total control early against San Francisco and then just kind of went to pieces. And so it's not their season on the line against Dallas, but I think we'll have a much better idea about Philadelphia after that game. And then Arizona as well. Like, they need to take care of business against Jacksonville to really assert themselves in that NFC West race. But I think in terms of the underdogs, the most interesting line of the week to me is the Chargers plus 6.5 against Kansas City, because that line, it feels incredibly small. Patrick Mahomes only giving 6.5 points at home. And if you think about it, that if that line was, if this game was in Los Angeles, that's implying that, that line might be Chiefs -3. which that you can't imagine that there'd be much public action on the Chargers +3 against Mahomes. But I think the Chargers are a really solid team who incredibly only scored 17 points last week despite not punting. And Kansas City, they might be a bit more vulnerable than they have been the past couple of years.
Jay, I'm pretending I'm a regular guy. You gave me 2 winners last week, the Ravens and the Colts, but I already burned through all that money betting on a bunch of other stuff, international sports all week long. I need to turn $1,000 into $2,000 to get something for my wife's anniversary gift, which is coming up next week. Give me the one bet that you want me to make this week to turn my money and double that profit.
I do want you to double that profit, Warren. I think that the line that has seen the most sharp activity, and that's the one that I'll default to, is the Washington line, which has gone from +9.5 to +7.5 against Buffalo. I think this Buffalo offense has a lot of question marks, despite that was probably the least impressive 35-point performance that you'll see from a team. So consistently in really good field position because Miami's shooting themselves in the foot. I think that Taylor Heineke is perfectly serviceable as a quarterback. And this Buffalo offense has these question marks. And the difference, despite the move already from 9.5 to 7.5, that's not crossing a key number. I think 5% of games finish at 8 or 9. So it's not the end of the world losing those 2 points. That's about 20 cents of value. But the way that sharps have hammered that Washington line suggests that there might be something underlying there.
I'm no sharp, and I don't think I hammer lines, but this is music to my ears because people know I liked Washington this week if you listen to Bet the Edge throughout the week. So happy anniversary to you and your wife, Warren. There's your play. Jay, we got to get to Sunday Night Football here, and we got Aaron Rodgers in this one, and that's where I want to go. Aaron Rodgers right now, huge performance on Monday Night Football at home in Lambeau. And now PointsBet has his passing yards set at 270.5 against this Niners secondary. Where do you guys expect money to come in on this prop for Sunday?
So as a general rule, the money on quarterback passing yards props are going to be on the over because people like rooting for that. So that's where we expect to see money. I think Green Bay, we still don't know what this team is. They were so bad in week 1 against New Orleans, and then New Orleans the following week, despite having injuries, then get just ravaged by Carolina. And then Green Bay, I don't think handling Jared Goff's small hands and the Detroit Lions means that everything is right with their world again. So we'll see what they're made of against San Francisco. But again, this line, it implies that, San Francisco are the better team. And, they have real questions about their secondary, which Rodgers might be able to torch. But that San Francisco defensive line is really strong going against an unproven Green Bay offensive line that is missing key pieces. And so that's probably where the passing yards element will come in, where the Rodgers can get going against that secondary and these offensive line can hold up. And then also game script, which is so key with all player props. When you're thinking about player props, you have to imagine how the game will play out. And that was a bit decimated by the fact that last week the Titans were down all game against Seattle and Derrick Henry still got 40 carries. So it doesn't always work out that way. But for the most part, if you think that Green Bay are going to roll, that doesn't always tie in with Rodgers going over his player prop passing yards.
Before we let you go, Jay, fairly quickly, right now I look at Green Bay, pretty sizable favorite rather, -250 to win their division. Is there anybody else that you think could contend with the Packers and make this race interesting?
This division has been a mess since it opened up in terms of the odds, where all the uncertainty about Rodgers, whether he was going to stay or go somewhere else or retire, that shifted the odds all throughout the offseason. Now we think that Minnesota is the most likely team. The fact that Chicago have that extra win means that they have to be in the discussion, and Fields does have that upside. But at the same time, it does kind of feel like the Chicago Bears are a 0% chance to win that division going up against Green Bay and a fairly solid Minnesota team. So Green Bay are basically that heavily favored by default because they have Aaron Rodgers, because they do have a win banked now. But I think we'll learn a lot about Green Bay on Sunday night.
Green Bay -250, then Minnesota next +450. Jay, thank you so much. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, guys.
Only PointsBet offers no juice on all NFL games this September. PointsBet is giving higher payouts and you get 100% of the profits. So stop burning money with other books. Get +100 spreads on every NFL game in September. PointsBet's even money spreads have no limits and are even good for parlays. And we talked a little bit about Sunday Night Football with Jay Croucher as the San Francisco 49ers are playing the Green Bay Packers. And Drew, you alluded to the 49ers passing game has been fairly conservative to start the season. And we actually caught up with NBC Sports Bay Area's Matt Mayoko to find out just how much support Jimmy G has from his coaching staff.
It might not always look pretty, but the 49ers have been successful with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback, and he continues to hold off rookie Trey Lance, whom the 49ers traded up to select with the number 3 overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft. The reason is because Garoppolo keeps doing what he does, and that's play well enough to win games. The 49ers are 2-0. And if you want to say it's in spite of Garoppolo, you're probably going to get some pushback from those within the 49ers organization. The 49ers have a lot of injuries at running back, but they are still a run-first team. How the 49ers attack their passing game is a week-to-week proposition. Last week, they threw a lot of short passes against the Philadelphia Eagles because of their pass rush, as well as a defense that was designed to keep the ball in front of them. On Sunday Night Football, the 49ers could push the ball down the field a little bit more, but whether the ball is being thrown down the field or they rely on the yards after the catch with George Kittle and Deebo Samuel, all that matters is if they're gaining yards, moving the chains, and winning games. Garoppolo is averaging 9.2 yards per pass attempt, and that's a mark that if projected over the entire season would amount to the best mark in 49ers history. So right now, the 49ers certainly are not looking to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo because the team is winning games and he's doing everything they want him to.
All right, thank you, Matt. We look now at the Green Bay Packers playing the 49ers, NBC, of course, Sunday Night Football in prime time. And this opened at the 49ers favored by 3. The over-under was 48. Money came in on the Niners, now laying 3.5. Total has ticked up a full 2 points, sitting at 50. Drew, you liked road dogs. Here you have one. Is it the same here?
Yeah, no, I make the Packers as a meaningfully better team than the Niners on a neutral field. I don't give the Niners a ton of home field advantage here. They have never really earned much home field advantage at the Field of Genes in past performances. And realistically, I think Matt's points were fair. I would love to drop a note and find out about the drama that's going on there next week if they lose this game, because realistically, I do not see how the San Francisco 49ers team goes score for score with the Aaron Rodgers-led Green Bay Packers. The Packers are a much more dynamic offense. And realistically, taking the points here or backing them on the money line, you have 2 paths to victory that I think are most of the game states. Either the Packers get out to an early lead and they can play from ahead with the best of them. I do not like Jimmy Garoppolo trying to play comeback mode against the Packers team that has a ball hawking, secondary. And realistically, the Packers in comeback mode, if the Niners get out to an early lead here, I have all the confidence in the world that Aaron Rodgers can sneak into a back door if you're going to give me outside of 3 points. So Packers at plus the points is my favorite look on the card for the week. And realistically, I think they upset the Niners and they remind people of exactly how good this offense really is.
Favorite play of the week. Okay, love that. I think people have recency bias what the 49ers just did with this Eagles team and held their offense to just 11 points last week. Warren, your thoughts on this game if you're ultimately going to place a bet or where you feel like the right side is?
Well, I already did take the first half over in this game when it was at 23.5. It's obviously now 24.5. Money has come in on the over a little bit here. The interesting angle to me in this one is that San Francisco spent 2 weeks out on the East Coast, and they've done that 3 times the last couple of years. And every single first game back in San Francisco, when they return from that elongated stay out East, they struggle to start the game, and they're trailing in the fourth quarter of these games. One, they came from behind and won against Mason Rudolph and the Pittsburgh Steelers. One, they lost outright to the Philadelphia Eagles last year, who ended up going, 4-11-1 or something on the season. So it's going to be very important. Kyle Shanahan tried to alter their schedule this week to try to give some of the vets a little bit more rest. He's thinking ahead to try to hope and cut off that before it started, that they are going to get off to a better start. If they don't, though, the big issue, as Drew mentioned, is will they fall behind? Because I know that the Green Bay Packers didn't look good down in Jacksonville when they played the Saints week 1, but the Green Bay Packers were the number 1 highest scoring first half offense in the NFL, not just last year, but all the way back since 2014. So this is a very explosive, potent first half scoring offense last season. If they can bring that with them to the Bay, test a secondary that really hasn't been tested very much deeper down the football field, I think that the San Francisco 49ers will be trying to fight uphill in the second half in a deficit.
And depending who you like in comeback mode better, I certainly side with both of you, it sounds like, with the Green Bay Packers. Lean the over. I love the hook with the Green Bay Packers plus the 3.5. Now, we asked you, the viewers, to help us decide which game to dive deeper into and vote on our Twitter poll at NBC Sports Bet. And you guys did so. Now, the game of the week, the winner was the Seattle Seahawks playing the Minnesota Vikings on the road. This line opened with the Seahawks favored by 1. That's where it sits right now. The total high on the board, 55.5, tied for the highest total on the board for this one. Drew, I know this is a game that you've eyed all week and circled and you're looking forward to seeing. Obviously, Russell Wilson coming off of an overtime loss at home against the Tennessee Titans last week. Is this a Russell Wilson bounce back game? Can he get it done on the road?
I think absolutely. And realistically, it's the matchup of the wide receiving core for Seattle going up against a Minnesota defense that was largely talked about in the preseason, that they had made all these moves, bring in all these vets. We're going to, we're going back to the classic Zimmer defense. We're going to be a top 10 defensive unit. No, what we've seen out of these guys through 2 weeks has been mistake after mistake, miscommunications. Nobody knows really what their roles and responsibilities are, on top of the fact that a lot of the guys they brought in are well past their primes, and the young guys have not taken meaningful steps forward. And I'm speaking largely to the coverage here. You have Danielle Hunter, who can still create a little bit of a pass rush, but he's going up against a solid offensive line. I do not know how Minnesota gets off the field when they're on defense in this game, particularly on the fast turf with Lockett and DK Metcalf at full strength. Seattle does get the bounce back here. Really, the only thing that concerns me about them, in this game is the coaching approach and philosophy. What Pete Carroll and the offensive coordinator come in and intend to do with a lead here, because the way that they let Tennessee in back into that game last week was just mind blowing. And I could see them doing it again here to Minnesota and Kirk Cousins, who has his own dynamic duo of wide receivers to work with and who has been playing at a top 10 QB level. So I laid the points with Seattle. I think this is going to be a really fun game. Surprised to see that currently the total is ticking down to 55. This looked like one of the easier overs on the board, but Seattle for me.
I'm a little bit salty about this one. Last week I came on our show. I loved Seattle with the 5.5. They left the back door so wide open that they blew the 2-touchdown lead. Can they get it done this week, Warren?
Well, Sarah, this was before your time, but back in my high school days, there was a group called 311, and they came out with a song called Beautiful Disaster. And that's exactly what I am anticipating the secondaries of this game is going to be. Mike Zimmer's defense, as Drew appropriately discussed, is a beautiful disaster. I don't know what is going on. A lot of the sharp guys were betting on the Minnesota Vikings to potentially win this division, to exceed their win total. Fortunately, I did not join them because of some concerns that I had about Zimmer and his style. But Drew also mentions and picks up on an interesting point here. Both of these coaches are kind of born from the same blood. They are both defensive-minded coaches that would like nothing more than to just run the football if they have a lead. The problem is the run games on each team are not going to be very productive. The pass games are going to be more productive. And anytime they just switch to go conservative, they're going to let the other team back in the game, because I don't think the defenses are built to sustain leads against quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins. Say what you will about him, but playing from behind with these receivers, he can still put up points, coupled with Russell Wilson on the other side of the field. So I do see a game that could absolutely snowball with points coming in bunches in the second half, with whatever team is trailing, putting up points on the scoreboard. I don't know about the winner here. I think there might be some value in teasing the Minnesota Vikings past the 7 if you can get it there. But Dalvin Cook was just announced as not practicing for a second straight day. And as we're recording this live, I'm seeing that game being yanked off the board at a variety of different sports books.
Yeah, curious to see what happens with Dalvin Cook. For what it's worth, Russell Wilson, 34-9, coming off of a loss in his career. He's doing just that. We still have our best bets and so much more coming up here on Blitzing the Board. We'll be back right after this.
NBC Sports Edge Plus, home to everything fantasy, DFS, and betting. With premier tools and exclusive insights that are second to none. Get fantasy predictions, rankings, and betting trends, plus news and analysis from our experts. Play with confidence today. Visit NBCSportsEdge.com/learn.
Hey, what's up? It's Corey Parson here with NBC Sports Edge, taking a look at Week 3 in the NFL, where the Buffalo Bills are 8.5-point home favorites versus the visiting Washington football team. DC's defense has allowed 815 yards of total offense this season. This is a smash spot for the Buffalo Bills. That's why I'm laying the 8.5 with the home team. Do not forget to check out our daily podcast, Bet the Edge, Monday through Friday on our YouTube channel. I'm Corey Parson. Enjoy the games and enjoy the sweat.
Another beauty on Sunday Night Football. And don't touch that dial.
That's sensational.
What a play.
Holy smokes.
Welcome to AP Bio. Ready to begin?
You're a tiger.
Uniforms promote conformity. You're going to turn these kids into a cult.
We're really getting somewhere now.
Yeah. We are officially in a tornado warning.
We're all dead. We're dead.
Do not live in fear.
Where's my son, Jack?
Are you Mr. Griffin?
I suppose I am.
Dad?
We're getting you ready for week 3 in the NFL here on Blitzing the Board, and I'm here to give you my favorite betting nugget of the week. That's right, it's time for Pearls of Wisdom. Sit back, relax, take some notes. That includes you, Drew and Warren. Here's what I got. Teddy Bridgewater, 23-3 against the number in his last 26 games. Yes, we know he's a covering machine. 38-14 against the number as a starter. Now, what's so impressive this season, Teddy Bridgewater has completed 54 of 70 passes for 579 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's awesome. I love Teddy Bridgewater, but that's not necessarily the reason I'd look to back this game. It's also because their duo of running backs have been so successful. I look at Melvin Gordon and Williams. They're now facing a Jets defense that has allowed more than 4.1 yards per carry in their first 2 games. The Broncos defense is also another reason I look at this game. They held both the Giants and the Jaguars to just 13 points. And of course, Zach Wilson they're now facing, who leads the league with 5 interceptions after 4 last week. Now playing in altitude in Denver. You could argue this is still a home advantageous spot to back. But why I'm hesitant and have not laid the 10.5 after giving you this spiel is because Teddy Bridgewater is not familiar with laying 10.5 points. Yes, he's a covering machine. I get that. But 10.5 is a different animal. That's a double-digit number. I stay away. So when you see notes like Teddy Bridgewater covering machine, there's a lot to like. But this one has scared me off. Our betting recap will now hold off with the Denver Broncos, and that's where we go. Our favorite plays. I'll start fairly quickly here, guys. I like the Falcons +3. I liked it all week. I do think this is a good spot for them. I like their offense better than the Giants' defense and the Giants' offense. My other play, 6-point teaser. Tampa +7.5. The Washington football team, after Jay said that, I feel better, +15.5. The 2-team teaser there. Warren, your best bets.
I like the Saints, New England Patriots under the total. Still like it at 42. Preferred it at 43. Would have liked the 21 in the first half if you can shop around for that. Otherwise, I like the over in this Tampa Bay game that Drew's going to be talking about in a second and his best bet. I don't know that you need to go right now. I think that's a game that you could actually wait a little bit on. Wait and see if the number ticks down a little bit more closer to game time and get a better number than 55.5. But I do like that game over the total.
Yep, and as mentioned, I'll be rooting for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, get a win in LA, and carry on. Gosh, at this point, I have their futures. I have them as the last undefeated team. Now I'm backing them on the money line against the Rams. So I think I am a little over my skis here potentially on Tampa Bay this week, but that's fine. And then, of course, Green Bay. I like Green Bay to make some noise in the Bay Area in the primetime game, as well as backing Seattle -1.
So really quick, a recap. I like Atlanta +3, my 2-team teaser. Tampa Bay +7.5. 15.5 with the teaser with Buffalo, with the Washington football team. We got Warren under 42 in the New England game and over 55 in Tampa Bay. And then Drew, Tampa Bay money line in Seattle, laying the 1 against the Minnesota Vikings. Now that you're all set to make your wagers, don't forget to set your fantasy lineups. Check out A Good Football Show, Fantasy Kickoff, every Sunday at noon Eastern on the NBC Sports Edge YouTube channel, leading right into kickoff as Patrick Daugherty and the Edge crew cover all of the inactives and late-breaking news, break down the key fantasy matchups, and take your start-sit questions right before lineups lock. Go to NBCSportsEdge.com/YouTube to subscribe right now. That wraps up week 3 here on Bet the Edge Blitzing, the board powered by PointsBet. For Warren Sharp, Drew Dinsick, and all of us here with NBC Sports, I am Sarah Perlman, and we wish you nothing but the best of luck with all of your wagers. Enjoy the games, and we will see you right back here next week. And make sure to stay tuned on our YouTube channel for a good football show coming up right now.